Joining me now in the studio to put this discovery into some further context is the journalist and regular Monocle 24 contributor, Nabila Ramdani. Nabila, welcome back to the programme. Does anybody have any idea how much the Gaddafis might have spirited out of Libya?
Well, I had actually done some research work about Gaddafi's assets, and I have tried to trace them back. And the first thing to say is that the $1 billion that has been found in South Africa worth of gold and diamonds, it really is a drop in the ocean in what Gaddafi and indeed his family owned. Remember, this is a man who ruled over a country for 42 years, a country which is massively rich in oil and gas resources. And in fact, according to, in fact, at the end of 2010, Libya was estimated to have held $152 billion in assets around the world.
Not that most ordinary Libyans would have known that or noticed it, of course.
Well, they had an idea that Gaddafi was very much a man who of cash, and he believed in spreading his money around the world in continents including the US, Africa. Of course, he saw himself very much as an African leader. He believed he was a man of vision, and remember, he tried to set up the United States of Africa, and he was very much a leading figure in the African Union. So it's not surprising to see that some of his assets have actually been found in South Africa. But the Libyan people were very keen to try and get back some of these assets, especially during the conflicts where they needed cash to sustain their revolution, as it were.
Well, what is the legal status of these assets? This must be a very complicated area. Who actually owns this stuff?
Well, you're quite right to highlight the complexity of not only tracing these assets. In fact, Gaddafi Corporation is what financial investigators have dubbed the complicated nexus of companies which conceal the dictator's wealth. And it involves interest in oil and gas, also telecommunication companies, infrastructure developments, hotels, media and retail. So it's a very complex nexus to trace back. And indeed, there will be an awful lot of legal hurdles to claim that money back, and not least of all because governments who hold those assets will claim that the structure in the government in Libya is not perhaps credible or legitimate enough for the assets to be handed over to them.
Well, which does prompt the obvious question, was that even if you were to hand this money back to Libya or these assets back to Libya, are Libya's present rulers any more trustworthy than the previous?
Well, absolutely. And there has, in fact, been evidence of the leaders of the National Transitional Council, diverting the money that was unfrozen by the British government during the conflict. So already cases of corruption have emerged, and that's what makes it so difficult to give the money to the Libyan authorities. And it's not just a case relevant to Libya. It applies to all governments. It's a matter of good governance and redistribution of wealth. But what makes it particularly important in the case of Libya is, of course, the amount of money at stake.
I mean, to put that amount of money in perspective, Libya is population-wise an extremely small country. Fundamentally, the entire country exists along one road along the coast. The smallest amounts that people are estimating for what Gaddafi took out of Libya run into billions and billions of dollars. If that money could be repatriated to Libya and sensibly and transparently invested, what kind of difference could it make to the country and Libya's actual people?
Well, it would make an awful lot of difference. For example, it could be used to pay officials with the view to restore law and order and invest massively into security forces. The number one duty of any government is, of course, to protect its citizens. And it's not the case at the moment in Libya. So massive investment into the infrastructure of a government would be very welcome. It would prevent, of course, the collapse of the state as well. So all these investments are crucial, especially at this particular time where Libya is in a state of flux and in a very volatile situation.
Unfortunately, it seems Libyans have not heard the last of Colonel Gaddafi. Nabila Ramdani, thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Globalist Asia on Monocle 24 with me, Andrew Muller.